being the wandering, me with, Randy and just doing that stuff. And when I thought that was in question, that made me go, oh, hell no. And, and honestly, when I said, oh, hell no, I also didn't know how, based upon what wasn't in the most immediate times working, having had many things work for me. I knew how to lose weight.
Totally.
Without popping a pill, working out, curbing my foods, eating clean, protein, veggies, all that kind of stuff for my body. I knew what toned my body. I knew what will help me lose my body, weight. I knew what muscles I needed to work to burn. I knew all that stuff. It just wasn't happening. So I started to lose my belief that I didn't know how I was going to resolve it.
Sure.
What I've, been so grateful for is that, I've been able to get myself to another place that in this part of my journey in life is definitely serving me in multiple ways, which is a great reminder of why it's so important.
Totally. It's true. And plus you are set up to handle your journey through chemo and the cancer. You're much better set up and equipped as opposed to if you did have your weight on or you weren't eating as great as you were. Like you are at your best you could possibly be physically going into that, which is what you want as much as possible.
Welcome to season 3 of the Fifi Uncensored podcast, everybody. Episode number 1. Incredible. I'm so excited for you to be here and join me with my guest, Rachel Sigl from Morphed Method, as we talk about, oh my God, the lifestyles that we choose and the conversation that we have is so layered, and our health and wellness mentally, physically, and spiritually. So join me, pull up a chair, grab that coffee, and here we go. Can you hear me?
Morning, just
Good
getting
morning.
life together.
Getting it together. I think that's kind of like how this week feels.
Oh my God, it's insanity.
Well, I think it's a really apropos, kind of kick up to our conversation.
Yeah.
Just where people are at and just, the functionality and the whole evolution of one's wellness.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And how they go through.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say thank you, Rachel, for joining me. I think this must be now your 4th time us doing this.
Yeah.
We did twice together ourselves, once with Jake. This is our 4th time. And the reason why I love us sitting down and talking, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, it is that mindset, mental, physical, spiritual is the foundation to everything. And we all take it for granted. And we all wake up one day when shit hits the fan and Jesus Christ, oh my God. And, the truth is you could be in that situation or you could be completely, definitely healthy and have, life happens, right?
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that as we're making plans and yet we're reflecting what's worked, what hasn't worked, how do you broach your clients when, they're at this cross now in new year? Oh my God, I didn't meet my goals, or oh my God, I did, and how do I make it better? And what do you like? How do you see this for people's health and well-being? How do you broach it?
Well, I think it's just a lot of pressure for New Year's resolutions, and it's just part of our culture, right? So if you're not ready, the anxiety of like not being ready, or I can't like launch in the first week of January. Like you don't need to. That's just like in your own made up deadline. Like that doesn't make any sense. But I understand like we've grown up with it and it's geared around towards it. It's like the time to get healthy after the holidays. So you like lose your shit over the holidays and like enjoy all the things. And then you like turn it up, you know, but like even this year, I feel like because COVID, we were stagnant. So there isn't like this influx of, I feel like people are getting used to doing things year round or starting to get healthier in different times of years. Just season by season, whether it's like, I mean, we had so many clients come on during like the holidays this year. They were, you know, so I think it's getting better, but there still is a mindset turn as soon as January gets here, you know?
Well, I think you also should see that you're talking about a rhythm.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like it's an algorithm, or it's a cycle, like a seasonal rhythm, or whatever that rhythm is. I think that is a really key thing that I have felt this week, turning into a new year, is what I call the unknown, the unknown of the known, or the known of the unknown, and going with one's rhythm.
Yeah, totally. Because it's like you're gonna have your rhythm regardless of your timeline. So as long as you just stay true to your own, like how your body feels, how you're feeling, what feels good to you, that's your only barometer, really.
So I think that that's an interesting thing to state on, because not everybody gets to live in their rhythm, depending upon what they do for a living, what their choices are, what choices they've made, what have you. So to that point, like, you know, and it's interesting because a big thing that you and I have talked about over time together. I mean, when we first spoke, I was 50 plus pounds heavier, and I spoke as if I knew what the hell was going on. And it wasn't that you don't necessarily, it's just that's where I was. Now, since I've shifted, and we worked together through a lot of that. And, you know, it's interesting being somebody who's now dealing with been diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and thankfully it's out, but, you know, going forward into the potential, not the potential, the journey of chemo, is the whole, like, looking at the industry of medicine and looking at humanity and listening to scientists proving that, like, being overweight is actually something that's discriminated over in all mental aspects of things, how people are treated. And you're somebody like you with Jake are people who deal with people who are in aging modes, and, you know, you deal with people 40 and above or 50 and above. And, you know, it's all about the grace of aging in the healthiest way, because this is when hurt, disease, lots of things can show up for people, and life changes can be very much altered. And I've seen that. You know, like you're on the bike doing great, and then things alter, because this is how life can be. And the best thing going in for myself has been my strength of the work we've been doing. And why I feel it's so important for us to share our conversations, because of inspiring other people to do the same, to take hold of the bicycle versus be chasing after the bicycle. Because it is an evolution. Because even though I came in really lucky and strong because of the work we've been doing together and getting into great shape, it takes a lot out of you, and you know, you can't force the rhythm, so to speak.
Totally. And that, well, in those senses, like, again, like as we've gone through the journey of the sense of like, you got to go how your body feels as far as energy levels day to day. You don't know how you're going to feel, especially as you go through the journey of like, as you get deeper into it, we don't know. So everybody reacts differently to everything. So it's just a matter of what your needs are. And then you go from there, you know, like the external rhythms that like the world's on, who gives, like, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It doesn't matter.
But I think that my life lesson right now has been exactly that. And I feel like that's something to be shared on a much more public platform, because I think people don't give themselves the opportunity to live in that mindset. because of all the other programming, just as you already before mentioned.
Totally.
And that we are so programmed to, like, once you get into the school system, or once you follow get in line, do. And I like rules. I like structure. I think that there's a reason for civilization. Yeah. I think there's a reason also for free thinking, as long as it doesn't harm anyone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're not talking about, knock wood, harming anybody. We're talking about, the reality of health and wellness, and being ahead of it, and the reasons why it's so important. It's interesting, Rach, I don't know if I mentioned this recently, but I had heard of a situation where, because of somebody's age and their weight, that, certain treatments were not going to be greenlit or what have you. And it was like really heartbreaking. Yeah. Because you see how people are diagnosed and treated for different reasons, and weight being one of them. Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned to you recently how I heard this piece. I think it was on, was it 60 Minutes or Sunday Morning? It's one of those shows, but it had to do with genetics and fat, and obesity. Look, I don't want to take a pill. I know that I will always have to watch my weight. I know that I'll always, have to pay. I'll always, people say, weigh yourself once a week. If I weighed myself once a week, it would be a runaway train. For sure. Yeah. And it sounds like an addiction. I mean, they would tell you that with thyroid, they would tell you, so it's a weird thing, because I know it's a numbers thing, as we talk about a lot. And it's not to be gauged by number. It's just to make sure that it's easy for my body to react to just weight and inflammation. Totally. And it builds up quickly. Yeah. So I do have to pay attention to how my body responds to the things I put in the day before. Mm-hmm. Totally. But do you think that's across the board? People don't have some people don't have an awareness factor. Like, they just aren't aware. Like, it's happening probably. But they just aren't aware for the state. You know what I mean? They're in. Yeah. So it's like, so for them, they got to really clue in and become aware first, I think, to solve those problems. Because usually when you have weight on your body, there's other issues like your joints, whether like diabetic, like you have other things going on internally. And most of it can be reversed. Like, obviously, like harsh medical ovarian cancer cannot, in that sense, but like things that are topical, and you can just reverse it with food, heal that way, become, very aware of what you're putting in your mouth on the day to day. If you can control what you're eating, you can control most things in life. It's a mindset. It's a mindset. Yeah. And 100%. I will tell you as the person who has been on the other side of that. Totally. Yeah. The conversations that go on up here about just leading me to the food when I may not be hungry, but I have talked myself into the salsa and chips, or I have talked myself into the matzah with tapenade. It's like, what? Like, you really needed that? No. But I talked myself into it, and I took action, and I went and I delivered, and then I put it in my mouth, and then I paid the price. But that's, I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people right now. 100%. Like, I lit up the cigarette, and there it was in my mouth. And I just, how many people did we grow up doing that 24/7? Just sleepwalking. Yeah. How many people do so much activity, action, sleepwalking? Like, I wish working out was like sleepwalking, taking action. But it's not for everybody. It's not the high for everybody. It's a must or a need. Yes. Versus, because I'm just sleepwalking doing it. Yeah, totally. Very rare. Totally. But I think too, but that's like the whole point of their underlying issues most of the time when you're doing that kind of food stuff, emotional eating or stress eating or just boredom. Like, you got to break it down. Okay, why? Is it your culture, your family culture, your stuff that you grew up with? Like, what is it? You have emotional block? Are you super stressed out? Like, then it becomes mindless.
And then that's when like a lot of bad decisions happen, not in the sense of like life, just saying like poor decisions in regards to food choices, you know, happen.
Oh no question. I mean, God, those decisions are so much better than the decisions that used to be, 10 or 20 years ago.
Totally.
The dozen plus donuts in a box was not a good decision, or the Domino's pizza was not a good decision.
100%.
That's all relative, but it is definitely part of peeling back the onion for sure. That again, I think is, look, obviously I made a conscious decision, 8 months ago, when I did get a slight tear in my meniscus, and I did say I got to heal this naturally, not do surgery, and got myself in a pool, thankfully. And a month into it said, I've got to get this weight off my joints. Thankfully, it was my own inner voice versus somebody else saying, hey, Felicia, I'm sure everybody around me was thinking it, but my voice went off. And thankfully to action, and thankfully through a process of aligning with, I'd already aligned with you, but we weren't effectively working together yet. But because of my taking action, I think what aligned us we already were, like I said, but it took us to the next level of how all of this was like clicking again for me.
Totally.
And what's interesting about saying even that out loud is like, I have all the tools in my toolbox, like many of us do, but we have to make a decision to show up for ourselves. We have to make a decision to take consistent action. We have to make a decision for it to be a lifestyle, not a diet. We have to make a decision that it's a health and a wellness, longevity, living life where you and I talked about this, where you can roll in and out of bed. You can get in and out of your sports car. You can bend down and tie your shoe. You can get down on your knees and get back up. You can climb steps or ruins in Greek or Greece or wherever the hell you want to be. You can get dressed. You can sit down on the freaking toilet and get back up and wipe your own ass. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. People do not realize how important it is for us all to be able to, with fluidity, move our bodies with our own head to toe connection on our own ability without any assistance. This is real, people. This is real. And unless you're like put in that face of that reality of seeing when it's no longer real for certain people. You may not want it to cross your mind. I get it.
Well, it's not going to register. Like you said, so to your point of typically we see people, like you said, they change when there's a dire circumstance. That's like the trigger. For some reason, I could tell them 20 times, like, oh, maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to do this. Maybe you want to do that. No, we're good. Whether it's like they think it's never going to happen to them or they think they're good and they're really not, like whatever it is. But the buffer totally decreases as you age. Like the buffer's gone. Like the 20 dozen donuts you were eating at 22, it's never going to happen again. Like you would be out. But like your meniscus tear was your point to like, that was your trigger. Who knows where your journey would have taken you if you didn't get your meniscus tear, but for you, it took you there to get to your inner voice to say, oh, you know what? I should be doing this because you weren't affected before that. Right.
Yeah, no, not, I mean, I'm sure I have been in the past, but sure. I've taken care of it in the past also. Multiple times.
Totally. So it's like a trigger. So it triggers you to think about, I think, when it happens later in life too, when you do get an injury or a bad doctor report that, oh shit, I actually do have to take care of my shit. Otherwise serious shit's going to happen. And I'm in our fourth quarter or whatever you want to call it, not to be dire, but it's your golden years. And like you don't want anything, you don't want to live out like that. Yeah.
No, and that was the thing. I mean, I literally imagined my inability to travel the way I wanted to travel, the freedom. Love walking streets and being able to see sights. And that's the whole reason for traveling, is to be able to enjoy and engage in all this atmosphere and landscape. And I was like, oh, no goddamn way am I going to limit myself from that opportunity or opportunities, multiple, like living my life the rest of my life, just being the wandering, me with, Randy and just doing that stuff. And when I thought that was in question, that made me go, oh, hell no. I'm not, and honestly, when I said, oh, hell no, I also didn't know how, based upon what wasn't in the most immediate times working, having had many things work for me. I knew how to lose weight.
Totally.
Without popping a pill, working out, curbing my foods, eating clean protein, veggies, all that kind of stuff for my body. I knew what toned my body. I knew what would help me lose my body, weight. I knew what muscles I needed to work to burn. I knew all that stuff. It just wasn't happening. So I started to lose my belief that I didn't know how I was going to resolve it.
Sure.
What I've, been so grateful for is that, I've been able to get myself to another place that in this part of my journey in life is definitely serving me in multiple ways, which is a great reminder of why it's so important.
Totally. It's true. And plus you are set up to handle your journey through chemo and the cancer. You're much better set up and equipped, as opposed to if you didn't have your weight on or you weren't eating as great as you were. Like, you are at your best you could possibly be physically going into that, which is what you want as much as possible,
So, it's interesting because we've talked about, thank you, by the way. We've talked about how food is like the gateway, kind of like it's the gateway drug to all of this. It's the healer and the disease, depending upon which road you travel.
That's right.
So fascinating.
Yeah. No, it's
so let's
insane.
talk about it. Because, there isn't anything I wouldn't happily wrap my mouth around, pretty much. And I don't mean I don't mean to sound like rude and, but it's true.
They get it. No, it's, sugar's a drug. Like, sugar's highly addictive. And it's in every, like, you literally have to eat, like I always say, like, whole foods from the earth. Nothing processed. Processed stuff has sugars on top of weird stuff, seed oils. Like, they got a bunch of stuff. Your body is not meant to process those things. And so all of the additives and extra chemicals that you do put in your body, it just adds to it, whether it's like just weight gain or not being able to process or function at your highest ability. It just, there's a reason why fruits and vegetables are healing. Like, you go on, you really like clean it up. You go on elimination diets. Food allergies are very high. And so many people we work with nowadays, autoimmune issues are high. There's just, but it's hard. It's really hard. It's so confusing. Food is overwhelming, I believe, in the sense of they're everywhere you turn. If it's not like out of a garden, like, there's shit in, like, there's stuff in it. There's chemicals, like, there is stuff somewhere in anything. So it's very hard to, like, stay really, really clean if for optimal.
You're absolutely right. And the thing about it is, you've got to, like, literally live out of a garden 24/7 and have your own chicken and your own source of protein, whatever that is, by personal choice, in your backyard. Otherwise, you pretty much, even if you're cooking for yourself, let's say that now you have a garden, but you also are using other things out of the aisles of the grocery store. You look at every label, there's preservatives in practically everything, unless you're seeing in the fruit, vegetable, and protein aisles.
Yeah.
Everything else is filled with something. And I have to tell you that my greatest awareness of that came a decade ago when I had to prepare, ironically, for my papillary thyroid cancer stuff for certain tests. And you had to get your sodium level down crazy enough under 100 micrograms.
Okay.
Shoot. Well, most people have so many more hundreds, if not thousands, daily.
Totally.
That it was enough to make you cry because you realized what you couldn't eat versus what you could eat.
Totally.
And realizing how we have been wired all as a society. I don't care how purist of a choice you are. You still have been raised around it and have been engaged with it. Totally. And even in the healthiest versions still have their shit. Like, and that's the whole other thing. Like, you can have from the main, like, grocery stores to the specialty stores. Yeah. That shall remain all nameless.
Yeah, of course.
But they all have their shit.
Totally.
And so it's interesting because we're all a product of that stuff.
Totally.
How we all then physically, mentally, and addiction-wise, spiritual-wise, whatever-wise, get hooked into the nomad's land.
Yeah, it's so easy to, but it's so hard. It's so hard to be aware of that when you're just cooking for your kids or whatever, you're cooking for whatever at home, and you think it's healthy. Like, you would not know unless you took a really deep dive. Like, you just wouldn't. Like, it's not basic information. So super easy.
Yeah, no, and let's face it, they say if you can't understand the ingredients, then you shouldn't be eating it.
100%.
Which
Simple.
Takes you right back to like why you throw a tomato and an onion and some garlic and some, basil and olive oil in and make your own shit.
100%, which is delicious, by the way. There's never a lack of taste going those routes ever. You just have to season it. So good. Totally good.
Well, we talk about this a lot, being Mediterranean girls from our roots, our Greek and Sicilian roots. and how there are many ways how that serves us from a knowledge perspective. Don't get me wrong. I'm also a kid who was raised on, astronaut chocolate immediate sticks along with Tang and what were those things called? The frozen dinners that they. We got it all. We got it all.
Yeah.
So that wiring and that, we got that, and we got the freshest of the freshest.
Totally.
We would have Food Network meets preservative astronaut, shoot them to the moon mortality. I don't know. It's
true.
The programming started young. It's kind of like a baby grabbing somebody's iPhone, their parents' iPhone.
Oh, I know. Well, too, and it doesn't help when obviously, I think my parents at the age, they did not let me have sugar, real sugar, until I was 5 or 6. They were nope, let's dial it in. But after that, it was kind of free for all. But even before that, it was everything's available. They have it in schools. They have weird stuff everywhere. So it's you can't really, it's so hard to even teach that, or it's a lot.
You'd have to be so insulated.
Yeah, totally.
And that's not reality.
No.
You really, I don't want to call out certain cultures, but it would have to be you live amongst each other. Let's put it that way. You live, eat, and breathe amongst each other, and you never leave that world. That's the only way you could keep yourself from being exposed to all that.
It's true.
And that makes it very interesting, because going into the new year, and people are hopefully getting to hear their rhythms, and hopefully not being hard on themselves, but making plans for, making decisions, having things they want to see through, including the wellness of them, their minds and their bodies and their spirits.
Yeah.
What do you say to people about staying fluid and staying strong mentally and physically?
There's an ebb and flow. Like holidays are obviously like challenging for tons of reasons, right? And you're not perfect 24/7. Like nobody is. Even like pros, Jake and I are not. Like there's no like perfect thing. But I always say if you live once you get to the point of like reaching your goals and you're close, like you want to live 80/20. Like you want to live 80%. Majority of your well-being is like pretty clean and you're kind of, staying outside of processed foods and things like that. And then 20% is messy. 20% there's, you're just living like whatever, because you can't have a the whole point of mindset is when you feel restricted, that's when things get weird and you throw it out the window. You're binging emotionally, like it's just so much. So when you don't feel restricted, like physically feel it, and you're still enjoying things here and there that aren't going to like break your whole progress, which it usually isn't, it's perfectly fine.
I'm excited for you to hear next week's part 2. It's just so many more great golden nuggets that Rachel's approach and why she's so successful along with her partner, Jake Platt. I really believe that as a client, the benefits are endless. And just the approach to whether or not you work with a coach or not is so very important. So join us next week for part 2. Much love. Look forward to it. And Happy New Year, everybody. Let's kick ass this year and do it on your own rhythm. Bye for now.
If you're overhauling your whole life, that shit's going to take time. It's not going to happen in a week. And if it happens in a week, that means you went too hard, too fast, and it's set you up for burnout. So like to truly change slowly and like do it. And that's why we always layer in everything. Like we always say, if client comes to us, we always tackle food and mindset first. And we don't even talk about workouts. We don't even deal with it yet, because your overhaul food is the hardest part always for everyone to get, unless you're already coming in and you're like, I already have my diet, I'm good. Like it's rare that happens. It rarely does happen. So taking care of that first and putting all the fitness, because fitness is easy. Fitness is just your add in, you plug it in when you're ready, when your body ready. But tackling the mind and the food first is super key. And that takes a minute for sure.
Welcome to Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast, season 3, episode 2, part 2, with my health and wellness coach, Rachel Sigl. This one, you guys, you have to check it out. It's such a quick listen. It's full of golden nuggets. It's all about getting back up and all about taking care of your life and your lifestyle that makes you feel 100% confident, beautiful, healthy, all with simple tools. And listen, no one of us ever has to feel left out, left behind. We can get up on the horse today and get this ball rolling. So join me and Rachel and listen to this great little piece that we together are looking forward to you hearing. Pull up your chair, grab that coffee, because here we go.
The whole point of mindset is when you feel restricted, that's when things get weird and you throw it out the window. You're binging emotionally, like it's just so much. So when you don't feel restricted, like physically feel it, and you're still enjoying things here and there that aren't going to like break your whole progress, which it usually isn't, it's perfectly fine. But getting used to that ebb and flow and not feeling guilty and have like the things along with it, the shame and all that. But there's no way you could gain weight with that 20% unless you were literally doing nothing and eating like shit every single day. It'll creep up, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're active, majority of your stuff is good, like you're on a good track for a long-term setup. You know, Christmas will happen, weddings will happen, birthdays, weird girl nights on Tuesdays, like shit will happen. So it's like you lean into them, and your body also becomes much more, when it becomes more high functioning, when you do get to a point where it's really clean, you're going to metabolize all that bad stuff a lot faster. And you're also going to get, if you do put something in your body that isn't agreeable, your body's going to tell you right away, the cleaner you get. And you're not going to even want to deal with it anymore anyways, just because of how it's making you feel now, because it's much different, you know.
I can definitely attest to that. And I know that I could attest to that before, but I think it's different this time. And I just feel like decisions made are different this time. And maybe it's just because I have more perspective under my belt.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
The timing. I mean, we talked about the fact that, you know, it could be a little frustrating to get this diagnosis after getting on this bike and having, you know, accomplished a success. And now what, you know, like not now what, like whiny victimy, but like shit, you know, how do we go forward with that?
Yep. Totally.
You know, and I'm going to do my best to keep it together because I have no idea what, but I know I don't want to go you know, where I came from.
Totally. But I think like we've touched on it a little bit, but when you have your focus going through all of that, it's so much better to have your focus there. Like, this is my focus, because when you lean into that, when you go through really, really tough scenarios, you're going to feel like emotionally it's going to take care of you a lot better as long as you go. And of course your body's going to feel at its best. Of course things happen, like if your taste buds feel weird or you're like, appetite's gone, that's one thing. But overall, having a focus through all that, so you don't feel like it's going to overtake you the journey, and you're not wallowing, and you don't feel like, you know, you're in a fetal position back, you know, not coming to bed, you know, I know. Which you won't, you're too strong. But I'm just saying for anybody else that, you know, is going through it, it's like it's like have your carrots.
You know, I have to tell you, speaking of carrots, you know, focus, this is a very important thing. I'd be the first one to tell you, and I say this out publicly, you know, some people are like, think I'm super, super positive. And I'm grateful that that's how I resonate. But it takes a lot of like getting yourself like, listen, I could hang in bed easily. I could. As highly functional as I am, for people that's like, does she ever stop? I could hang in bed, not follow an alarm, roll out when I choose, as long as I'm not being woken up by, you know, an animal farm, which we normally are.
Sure.
And I'm feeling in good condition. I mean, seriously, but I like my own like pace. I'm like a lion. I like to like kind of crawl through my land, eat, sleep, make love on my terms, and then go and pounce and do all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's my rhythm. Yeah.
It's awesome.
I also have to be highly productive in the world that I've chosen to be a part of. So I go in and I like do a lot of, a lot of pouncing. So when I have the opportunity to not be in those environments, I definitely feel like I'm more this kind of like, you know, this kind of cat.
Yeah, totally. Well, you can't be like high functioning 24. Like, you can't be at those levels 24. So you definitely have to like ebb and flow it, drop it in for sure.
Yeah. And I go back to the carrot and the focus, and whether it's a diagnosis or it's just getting on the bike, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think the important message is to just keep getting on the bike.
Always.
You know, because like you said, you know, all sorts of things are going to come your way, challenges, opportunities, diagnosis, life moments. And, if you're living your life in the 80-20 perspective, food being your source of your ultimate health achievement. If you can get your food together, is what your message is. If you can align with your food intake, being core to your needs to be healthy and the best version of yourself, the rest of it will fall into place.
Totally. And your mindset, if you're in that right mindset, you'll be ready to do it. But when you're ready to do it, you'll do it. But when people aren't, it's just, it'll be gone. Like you said.
It's freaking true. Sorry, I don't mean that because so sorry.
It's true. No, it's true. So it's like, we can tell people 20 times, do this. One time somewhere weird on an afternoon, it'll click for them. It's just so random. Because when you're ready, it's over. It's gone. If you're in, you're in. You ain't going back when you're ready.
It's true though. And every time that I have, it's like, and I'm a pretty intensely focused person, but when it comes to I don't know, and again, I could be speaking for a lot of people, or I could just be revealing my own shit, or both. It's, the conversation again, it's like, I've also heard in the past some interviews about how the brain is wired in a way to trip that light switch and to say, yes, go to the salsa and the chips, or yes, go make yourself whatever, the omelet, or I mean, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, just the whole conversation that's happening. And that doesn't mean I've got all these personalities in my head. No, but I will say though that I will always get these random drops of, well, you can just go have a piece of dark chocolate. That's, and some would say, then don't have it in your house. Yes, I get that. But other people live in the house and things shift through time. Sometimes there's nothing but the stripped version of what you say should be. And other times there's not, which goes back to what we're talking about. Life is what happens. And how do you manage through that and not veer off?
And thing too is the one thing, I mean, obviously you can't control when major things happen, like disease or an injury or things like that for the most part. So what you can control is your day-to-day routine most of the time. So it also, having that sense of control in a very unstable, medical environment also helps a ton, because you do feel okay, I have some sense of something, and that's why it's you lean into it. It just helps everything, day to day.
It's true. It's true. I do wish I was juicing a little bit more.
Okay. Baby steps, project.
Woke up this morning going, why wasn't I juicing the last few weeks?
Yeah, I know. Projects. I know.
Yeah, but I like to say we were still eating really, really healthy ultimately.
For sure. Yeah.
I feel in the big scheme of it all.
If you're overhauling your whole life, that shit's going to take time. It's not going to happen in a week. And if it happens in a week, that means you went too hard, too fast, and it's set you up for burnout. So to truly change slowly and do it. And that's why we always layer in everything. We always say, client comes to us, we always tackle food and mindset first. And we don't even talk about workouts. We don't even deal with it yet, because food is the hardest part always for everyone to get, unless you're already coming in. You're I already have my diet. I'm good. It's rare that happens. It rarely does happen. So taking care of that first and putting all the fitness, because fitness is easy. Fitness is just your add in, you plug it in when you're ready, when your body ready. But tackling the mind and the food first is super key. And that takes a minute for sure.
It does take a minute. And you and I have kind of bounced back and forth with all of it.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I feel fortunate, yet I feel like I'm always doing a little bit of catching up because I know that I'm not going to do anything perfectly. That is hardly my middle name.
Okay. As long as you do it, it don't matter how perfect it is.
Yeah,
Messy,
exactly.
Don't matter. Messy, who cares?
But that is also so important, Rachel, because we are so good at beating ourselves up for falling off that's why people don't get back on.
100%. Shame, guilt. Yes, I know. So, but that's why too, it's like, it's not even, so when you do, like, let's say for the holidays, like you fall off for a week or whatever, like Christmas cookies, all this crazy shit's around all the time. Even that, like you have to eat, 4,000 calories for 1 pound of fat. So the rest of it is all water fluctuation. Like there's absolutely no way you're ingesting like 8,000 calories over like day to day. Like there's not. So you always say over time, if you gain 10 pounds, it's probably 1 pound of fat in there. The rest of it, so perspective wise, but people don't know that. And of course, and that's why scale torture, to your point, is real. So like getting off, don't, if it feels like it triggers you, your best measurement is your clothes. That's fat loss, right? The measurements,
you're right.
How you're feeling and your muscle growth and your body fat. And if you are a scale person, fine, as long as it doesn't like take over your whole being, because it's easily, like I said, it could be easily consumed by it.
Well, I think that's also the beautiful thing about how you and I converse and interact. I mean, I don't know anything about the rest of your clients. I know you got a shitload of clients between you and Jake, and everybody who's got you are the luckiest people on the planet. And I've worked with a lot of different people, and I'm just here to say it's just like a whole nother experience. But to that point, it's like, take it in, sister. To that point is we do have this great back and forth, full, well-rounded conversation. It's not like, okay, just do 20 reps of blah, blah. No, we talk about life and food and emotions and do the movement and incorporate it all. And how super, super that important, the importance of that layered approach is.
Yes, totally. It's all related. It's all related. Think about it, like all trauma lands in your body. You got to move it. You have to like get it out. And it's all relative. If you're having a shitty day and you go work out, sure, you're going to feel better, but you got to you got to move and you got to do it. And it's also your mental state is going to carry you through everything. So even if, like we say, like on low key days, right? There's good stress and there's bad stress. If you're having like a really stressful, you're just like spiked, you're just like high cortisol all day, you're pissed off at your boss, your dumbass, girlfriend just pissed you off, like whatever, right? But if you're already stressed and then you go work out, your body's taking on all of that and you're taking on way too much and you're going to put yourself in a super high cortisol level and it's going to that's what causes water retention, weight gain, all that. So when you have a super stressful day, the best thing is to do low impact stuff. Just take walks. Don't put more stress on your body, even though maybe your workout clock during the week is like, this is my weight day. Don't matter. Like you just have to work around it and you got to move because you can't put your body through shit. It's going to make it worse. Your nervous system gets shot and you're massively exhausted throughout the end of the week or whatever it is. It's like things like stress is a major factor in a lot of it.
Yes, stress is probably the number one disease of the diseases. Is like start that pebble in the shoe and go from there.
No, well, think about it. Stress eating, right? People eat for comfort. People eat for satisfying emotions. Whether it's, they always say like when you break up with somebody, you put a pile of bread in front of them because they're going to handle it a lot better.
And avocados. Don't forget the avocados and the cheese.
Like we go through a breakup and everybody's eating pints of ice cream, like it's in there. So it's stress. Really, if you can manage your stress on a really healthy level, it solves a lot of the issues. And then you can, if you want to get super deep, of course, Yeah,
I do. Always.
But if you're finding yourself into ruts, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just saying as like a person on their journey. If you're finding yourself in ruts, you're like, shit, I'm fucking doing everything on the world eating perfectly, working out like a crazy person, still not losing the weight. There's another reason for it that doesn't just not happen. So, and we always come back to stress and managing it. And that means like meditating, taking care of your mental state, going on low impact workouts when you're like that, but also pushing yourself when you feel good. But not being like, people work at long ass hours like yourself, and you come home, like the last thing you want to do is work out. Or, I just need to like, just relax. Fine. You put your workouts in the morning, you know what I mean? Like you just set your whole thing up for success. So you're not just keep going in this pattern, right?
Yeah.
Stress management is super key. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. And I think that kind of brings us full circle to, like listening to one's rhythm and going into this new year and setting a tone and an intention of like, okay, if you're going to focus on the carrot for the next 365 days, let's just say we're going to go back into that pod and we're going to go into old creature habits of setting whatever.
Yeah.
One of the things on one's list, I think, should be listening to yourself, your gut, your rhythm.
100%.
And don't be abusive. If you follow an 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
And just stay in touch with how your body feels and try to keep moving it, even under low impactful ways.
Totally. And like, you mentioned like, you can take a pill and lose 30 pounds. I'm sure of it. But that shit also isn't teaching you how to come out of it, how to actually like incorporate food you should be eating. So you like, that's why 90% of people on weird fads and fixes and weird stuff, like they always gain it back. And then they're like lost and baffled because throughout the process, there isn't a lifestyle set up. Quick fixes are fine. Like they work, obviously. You're in a caloric restriction. You're just not eating as much, like you're just calorically down. So, and if you're putting stuff, the appetite suppressants and things like that, it's a mixture of all of the things. You're actually also not putting great things in your body as well. So of course you're just setting yourself up for failure on those things, but it's not you, it's the program that set you up for failure. So getting in touch with, that's why I think coaching is so important. And coaching is proven to take, percentages like 40% more of your well-being. You're going to succeed on a higher level than without it on your own, just like flailing or winging it or anything like that.
Well, I definitely, one of my greatest takeaways from going through this pandemic and the COVID era of connection and conversation and expansion and how you and I aligned, and then you and Jake and I aligned, was on point to that, which, was coaching is key. Coaching is key. My takeaway from the pandemic was, we're so, speaking of being wired and programmed, we're so wired and programmed to think we stop learning after a certain level of achievement of 12th grade or college or your doctorate or your certificate or whatever it is in your line of passion and purpose. But the truth is in life, we never stop learning. The truth is we always need to be alive. You have to want to learn and keep engaging in that process, knowing that the journey is never done, period. Because it is an evolution of how you ebb and flow with your body as it goes through all the things in life it will go through. And having a coach, no different than a professional athlete, or a person who's going for, some educational whatever, or whatever, wherever coaches are, which is throughout all aspects of life.
Yeah.
Those that have coaches, I think, I don't have statistics, but the success rate and the motivation and the support and the helping people achieve their goals, it's all like, hello, people, we don't have to look far to know. We support all of this as observers. So the difference between us versus them, so to speak, if we're whatever we're playing in the moment, because we all switch those roles, like teacher and student, we switch the us and them, the entertainer and the athlete or the whatever.
Yeah.
The bottom line is the best takeaway is the importance of aligning with coaches who have your best interest at heart.
That's right.
You may be like, well, yeah, they cost blah, blah, blah. I don't know what they cost. Everybody's different. You got to talk that through and figure that out. But if there's somebody out there.
Yeah, totally.
And I highly recommend Rachel and Jake and Morphed Method because they're just like no other. But the truth is coaching is key. And I was lucky to have a coach that led me to you, who I still also have, that was food related and more program related.
Sure. Yep.
But a program that, I can support because it is helping people. And I also do believe that it is a more integrative communal coaching program, why it works, because they don't just drop you off on the curb and say, see you later. 3 months later, you're all on your own. No, nobody does it alone. That's the key.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. 100%.
Nobody does it alone.
The cost most people go through is much greater than a cost for a coach, as far as like their medical expenses or their freaking food bill or whatever it is. They're usually extravagant comparatively, where when you have a perspective coming in that's there to streamline everything for you is much different. They're not winging it. You can't wing it. You just can't wing it.
No, and I know that the people I've spoken to since, who have commented on my shift in this last handful of months.
Yeah.
And I think they're like dumbfounded for one thing, because I don't know, I must look so different to them. And then like, what the fuck did you do? And I'll make the running joke, I wired my mouth shut, which we both know I hardly did. And,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it really is like making a decision to shift your mindset. Yeah. You got to start there. Like you said, you can tell a person 20 times, you can show them all the tools, you can have it right in front of them. They're not going to do it like the old adage, the horse, you can bring the horse water, but you can't make it drink.
Truth. You
gotta want for it. And it's very simple once you want for it to take the consistent actions for a better overall lifestyle.
100%.
Yeah. And it is really important to stay ahead of the bicycle than to have to chase after it down a hill, because you're never going to catch up.
No. And you don't want to be chasing disease or fixing it. You want to get to the roots so you prevent it.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is, I think, a better focus, to be in a place of like archaeologist.
Yeah. Totally. Dig it up. Yep. 100%.
Confront it, eradicate it.
Yes. 100%.
Live by a mantra of I love thy temple of thine self.
Yes.
Mind, body, and spirit. And this is what I got. This is what I've been given. This is a gift, and so be it. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Totally. You take really good care of your pets. You take really good care of your kids. It should be the same. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Amen to that. And every woman, let alone man, I have heard say that they don't have time. And look at,
I know. I don't know, man.
I've spent most of my days, over 30 plus years, on film sets for making other people really wealthy and really well known and all the things, and giving up a lot. And that's not a woe me.
Yeah.
But that's like working 2-3 jobs a week for years on end.
Nope.
So there isn't a whole lot of time left for oneself, let alone raising a family, whether it's whatever form it is, let alone taking care of you. But it's a must.
Have to. Because
it will catch up with you.
100%.
And I have watched how it has caught up to people who didn't put themselves first.
Yeah.
And took it for granted.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, any other things you want to contribute before we wrap this up?
No, it's really good. I just think, timelines are great for the new year. Of course, it's a great time, but there is no better time. Like even when you're older, like we go through this a lot, like it's not too late to ever get healthy. You can turn anything around at any age. Jake is freaking 55 years old and that guy is walking around here looking like he's like my age, 30, almost 40. Yeah. So there is just ever, and I think the psychology of it is like, oh, I'm just too old. Like I don't want to do it. I just kind of succumb and settle, to what you have in front of you and just kind of like, well, this is just kind of what I was dealt. Like it doesn't ever have to be like that ever. Shit can change months. It does not take freaking years and years and years. You just have to get ready and just be committed to the journey.
Well, I think that you said something very key, which is many people at certain stages of life just say like, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it is. Yeah. So therefore I throw up my arms and say, that's it.
Yeah.
And I certainly see that with a lot of people around my age range. And I think it starts to happen for people anytime. I mean, it depends upon what happens in their life, but some people can make that decision at 40 and some people can make that decision at 60. Some people don't make that decision until much later in life or ever. I think those who live with the spirit of, no, man, I'm digging my heels in and doing this. Like,
that's right.
I'm just going to get better like a fine wine. Whatever that means, I think has a greater chance. Yes. And I definitely think that when this is not, listen, I think my genetics, because my genes are like
insane.
Stepping forward, front and left and right and center, because I couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Not for what age I am and most likely side by side with other people, but that's not a like, whoa, me. That's a like, I've had plenty of opportunities to throw in a towel.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I've had plenty of opportunities to say, fuck this shit. I'm not 100%. Doing this anymore.
That's right.
I've had plenty of opportunities to say, this is too goddamn hard. I've done this already and I'm not doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, it's never too late. I mean, it wouldn't matter how old anybody is. If they're 80 and they're carrying extra weight and they want to be able to like ride a stationary bike or, be able to get in and out of their chairs and go and get up and out of their bed and their toilet and whatever. You want to have that. You want to have that consistent strength walking into that stage of life. And we never know of anything. We don't know. No, this is all unknown. This is an illusion, this conversation. This is just a bunch of banter based upon perspective. And 100 years from now, people could laugh at this conversation. But to the core, say that again.
It's true. It could be like, because things will be so different then, of course.
But to the core relative to now, I think it's valuable tools.
Totally. Yeah.
And hopes that people feel at ease and comfort hearing it, where it's not like a sergeant jumping down their throat.
Yeah. It's got to be positive. It's got to hit them in their life. It has to completely resonate. But you're a really good inspiration for that. To prove it, and then some.
Well, thanks, Rachel. And thank you for being my coach and my one of my most amazing spirit guides in present day and keeping me in alignment with myself and not getting like too out of alignment with my emotions or whatever, but allowing me to feel my emotions and work through things. You are incredible.
Oh, I love you. You're the best. You're doing amazing.
Thank you so much. I love you so much.
I hope you hearing this podcast inspires you to feel like today is a new day and the rest of your life you have the power. You have the power to change. You have the power to alter, all with little simple acts of kindness to yourself. I look forward to you joining me next week for all new content for the season 3. Loving this new season of the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast. So join me, keep sharing, put it out there. We're building this beautiful community of content, information, lots of guests with lots of life stories, because this is where the spirit is young, the soul is wise, and the life experiences are vast. And we talk about everything from soup to nuts, or what I like to say, from cannolis to egg in the holes. And don't forget the s'mores. This is my life passion to share with you all, and I'm so happy you're here. Much love. Bye for now.